Hi guys, it's Penelope in London. Today, Michaela and I are going to be reading the what's going on with the full moon in Scorpio. Quite exciting for all of us, no doubt. Michaela, hi.
Hi, Penelope. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's see what's going on. We've got the full moon in Scorpio at 7 degrees, and it's going to be, if you're in the USA, it's 26, and in the UK, it'll be 4:31 a.m., but in New York, it will be 23:31, and in California, it's 20:31. So then, got a nice picture there of a scorpion. And then we've got, this is the chart that we're looking at. Do you want to mention anything about this? Because we will jump over to solar fire at some point, but is there anything specific before I go into aspects and things, what you can see here? Or I can jump forward to...
Well, this is GMT. I usually do GMT unless there's a reason specifically to do some other location. So, I mean, this is obviously Neptune is rising in this chart. So,
yeah,
it's very watery because obviously it's a Scorpio moon and it's Pisces rising and Neptune is in Pisces, and so it's a lot of deep feelings coming out. I think a lot of undercurrents.
I think so, and that Mars moved into into the sign of Cancer, and that was, I think the emotional. And when we look at when we look at the crab, for instance, or the scorpion, and we begin to look at the mythology behind this, and also the constellations, which you introduced me to a few weeks ago, when we begin to dig deeper, we can see how connected we are to the planetary bodies, and very early on in humanity.
Yeah, definitely.
So then we've got we got also, so that moon is 7 degrees, and it's opposing here. We've got, actually, if I look at my list, if we go to this, we can always come back to this one, but we are going to go to solar fire. We've got the aspects here, which is the sun. Always, if you're not familiar with astrology, the sun is always opposing in a full moon, and with a new moon, it's the sun is on the moon. And then we got the sun is conjunct Mercury, but it's fading. Sun conjunct Venus fading off as well, I think. And then we've got the sun sextile Mars, sun square Saturn. So that's interesting. I know it's a bit out of orb, or is it moving on in? We'll have a look, but and then we got the sun conjunct Uranus. So that was something you were bringing up there. I think the moon, we can see what it's doing, but we'll get deeper into the chart. The Chiron sextile Saturn may be a bit useful to us, but we've also got the Pluto retrograde, which is station.
Yeah, it's going retrograde today. So at the same time as the same day as the moon, the full moon. So and that's very meaningful.
And we've got the Lilith, which is the shadow, which I love Lilith here, which is conjunct Mercury, conjunct Venus, and Lilith is sextile to Neptune, and Lilith trine Pluto. So Lilith in the chart is basically where we look at true Lilith, or whether we look at the mean Lilith. And then we've got the asteroid Lilith. But with regard to this is true Lilith on this aspect here. And the node is trine Saturn, so maybe that's quite useful to humanity in a way. And then the node sextile Chiron. So Venus square Saturn was a big one that people were talking about, but I think that's faded off now.
Yeah, it's separating. Yeah, but I mean, it still applies at the moment, but it is separating.
Okay. So what we'll do is that if I go back to, what's Daisy? This one here. I quite like this image. You can see who it's by here. I found it online. It's a Scorpion Queen. And I quite almost thought, although it looks very harsh, actually, this picture here with the claws of Scorpion and the tail, that we are in this Aquarian with the Saturn and the Jupiter. And then we've got the retrogrades going on there. So, but it did look quite Aquarian, this sort of Scorpio figure, which was quite interesting to me, quite metallic and
sort of robotic.
Yes, robotic as well, which is very much, it seems, the way we're going at the moment, in some ways. And then we've got here, did you want to mention the we don't have to mention it all right now, but the financial aspect of the sun being in
Taurus. Well, that's
Taurus.
yeah, because obviously the Sun Taurus, and it is conjunct Hamel as well, a fixed star Hamel, which you mentioned before,
Yeah.
which is yeah, it is a fixed star of discord. And it's obviously the Sun is applying to Uranus, which is at 10 degrees Taurus, and there's Venus there, which is in its sign, because Venus rules Taurus, and the Black Moon, which is the shadow Taurus, conjunct Mercury, Taurus. Mercury is about, I mean, this is about the stock market here, because that's the, God, I forgot what it's called, that line. I did say to it's basal line or something like that. But anyway, it's about the stock market. There are a lot of people, corporations and such like, making a lot of money out of out of the world's woes. So the poor are getting poorer, and people are losing their businesses all over the place and their livelihood, and wondering what about their security, Mars in Cancer, and how they're going to manage. But there's a lot of the rich are getting richer and they're scooping up. So I think there's a feeling of that underneath. I think there's a lot of discontent. And that golden bull, it is gold as well. So I think that's a lot what this chart is saying, with the moon opposite, the moon in the eighth, that's about investment too in Scorpio.
Yeah.
So it's about the subconscious, obviously. So we are becoming more conscious now of what's been going on, and I think there's a lot of anger, obviously, about that.
I've noticed, actually, I think I saw something where, not mentioning names, but British government, where somebody was, had some freebie, to do with redecoration or refurbishment, where people are siphoning off money and maybe using that in untoward ways.
Frankly, I mean, and probably, I mean, it looks like it was a bit of a dump anyway. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is a council flat, basically, number 10. So it should really be done up by the taxpayer, really. So I think it's just that now there is such a feeling of underhand dealings of all sorts. Then it's just all coming out of the woodwork, which is good. I'm not sure it all will, though. I mean, I think there's so much there, and that's what we're picking up on this chart, that there is so much going on with abuse of power. I mean, with that Eris, and that's what I was going to say too about Pluto going retrograde, rather.
Yeah.
And it will go retrograde until October the 6th.
Yeah. I don't know the exact date, but I think, around
6th of October. So it's going to move retrograde that whole time. And when it actually goes direct, it will be exactly squaring Eris again.
Okay, well, we'll look at the chart on that.
Yeah.
But I do know with the Taurus, if we're just taking the Taurus archetype into account, it is about survival, fertility, it's procreation, it's preservation. It's also inner resources, our values, it's beauty. It can be prostitution, self-sufficiency, starvation, poverty, giving up. It can be suppressed emotions, shut down, stubborn, hoarding, personal worth, stagnation, withdrawal, isolated, security, and self-esteem, patience. So there's a lot going on with this archetype, with the land, the farmer, the carpenter, the materialist, and being cautious. So it's very interesting when we begin to dig into the meanings and the wording of these things.
Exactly. But the combination of Pluto and Eris is I mean, power. I mean, Pluto's about power and huge, big corporations, governments, dynasties, all sorts of huge power. And Eris is the feeling of being manipulated.
Yeah, I can feel that somewhat, and it's it's bringing out some bit of sadness in me, that what I'm seeing, but I'm clear that
there's a lot of people really fed up by it now, and we are seeing so much. It's like we are inundated now with it. But I mean, it's good that we're seeing it, but on the other hand, it also makes you feel very powerless to do anything about it. And so that's why a lot of anger is growing, and people, the revolutionary spirit is going to just get more and more, really, because
I think so.
yeah.
I think also, when you're looking at this picture, I mean, it's quite, for a lot of people, maybe they've just had a shock as I just changed that from the bull to this. And what it is that the scorpion, a friend of mine taught me about this, and I had no idea. I'm Scorpio rising. The scorpion mother, she has the babies, she carries the babies on her back. So that tail, we can, it really makes sense to me now why the scorpion has a tail, because that will arch over the babies and protect those babies. And when we look at the scorpion archetype, also we can, the eagle comes into it and the rising out of the ashes as well. And we've got, I think I'll just read a few scorpion words and then we'll check over to the solar fire. But the scorpion, is commitment. It can be fear of entrapment. It can be shared resources, resourcefulness, and power and powerlessness, which is the Pluto part you're talking about there, Michaela, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's manipulation, abandonment, merging, obsessions, fear of vulnerability, which would say, the scorpion, when we look at the scorpion raw like that, the fear of vulnerability with the tail is very useful with the babies on the back of her. It's the metamorphosis, it's alchemy, taboo, it's secrets, it's darkness, it can be, sexual violence, phobias, paranoia, Egypt, intensity, fascination, and it's psychology, ultimately, and, destruction. So there's a lot going on there. So I think if we go over to this chart, and we'll be able to push it forward and watch what's going on with the emanated page. Here we go. Can you see the solar fire?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we have, and here's the moon. And this is be at British summertime for people out there who can see the time at for, if you're in the USA, you see this at 4:31. Remember, it's earlier for you. 5 hours from the UK if you're in New York, and then earlier if you're in other parts of USA. So what we've got, where's that Pluto? Let's have a look where we got the moon and we've got the sun, which is the opposition, and Pluto up here, we got the station. So did this station today? Should we have a quick look at that and see if we go back one day? There you go. So it's stationed within hours. So this is interesting. If we go hours and we go, we've got, actually, this is the 26th. So if we go, where's this station here? Let's see. I just wonder what station time this is. If we go ahead, it's actually stationing. There you go. It's this is on the 27th, it says at 2:31, which will be the 26th, wouldn't it be, really? I'm just looking there. Station, we got the station there. And we've got what did it station actually? We've gone back there. So it's stationed 27th. We're on the 27th. Let's just go forward, because that moon was at 7:08, 7:44. So, all right, so it's in station. That's right. Right now as we speak. So it's going to go back to 24, I think, isn't it, Michaela?
Yes, so it'll be exactly square Aries when it.
Okay, so let me see. So Aries is here, 24. All right, so I see what you're saying. So that's going to go back. What's your throw on the retrograde of Pluto?
Well, it's going over the same old ground again. It's like we think it's all over with the COVID thing, but obviously it's not. And also there's a lot going on behind the scenes, as I just said, about with money exchanges, with corporations, with power plays. It's a seething mass of power plays going on that we're only really unconsciously aware of, because we don't know, for sure. But I think we're really picking up now that this is deep rooted. All of this has been going on for God knows how long, but now we're really, really becoming aware of it. And I think it's come to the point where it's raising up in our consciousness, isn't it?
Yeah. So I would say
up in the depths in our consciousness.
Yeah, and I think that, as you said to me, which was very useful, that, all of the pain or the jealousy or the uncomfortableness that we have as human beings, that is where we're trying to become conscious within ourselves. And, when we're deep in the depths of something, we don't see it that way. It takes time to evolve through to get clarity on our emotional states, because a lot of it is implicit memory. It's, you know, our vulnerability, maybe where we've not been heard. So this links in, I think government links in with, you know, the parental stuff as well, the Capricorn stuff.
Yeah, with power, that those in power and where it's been abused, which is a very painful thing. It's a betrayal. So it's very deep and painful feelings are bubbling up to the surface. And so that obviously is going to be a process that has to be gone through, because we have to realize that that's what's happening. It does need to come up though, you know, and that's what we have to do. We have to find ways of processing it. Like I think you were mentioning meditation and all that sort of thing.
Well,
Whatever
I think, yeah,
to really, you know, make it keep moving, you know, with that Pisces and Neptune, keep it bubbling along and moving. Don't just get stagnated into.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm funnily enough,
get pulled down into the depths. So you need to keep moving along with it.
To be honest with you, I've never been one for, with my Gemini mind, with meditation. I prefer things like you say of hypnosis or something that's, you know, actually doing something for me. I can't just zone out. I get very, I think also with my North Node in my 6 on my DC, on my Sun, it's like I want to move. I don't want to, you know, with that North Node in 12, it's not something that I want to, you know, I don't want to really, that I've been there it's different for everybody, but I feel like I've been in that place of, you know, of being, you know, out of my body, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah, and once it's moving, and the point is to keep it moving. So we do have to realize that it's even though there are painful feelings coming up, there will be, because it's the collective unconscious. It's not just our own unconscious. It's not just our individual lives and those we know, and then and then our societies and people. I mean, like we're hearing about all this pain, like we were talking about India, you know, with the huge
numbers,
tsunami surge of the coronavirus they're getting, and the pain that we're seeing there. So we're having to process all of this, and it's collective, but it's also individual, and it's a lot to go through. So we really need to be aware of that, but it's very transformative in the long run. It's what we have to go through if we want to get to the other side and actually make the big changes, Uranus, you know, Sun Uranus, that are necessary to make with this.
Yeah, so we've got the sun at 7 and then 10, and actually that is in the middle of that. That is actually Hamal, isn't it? So Hamal is it's on the sun. The sun is on Hamal, rather.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. So yeah, it's pretty intense, but then it does have to be. That's the time. It's like the you know, the Negrido, the alchemist, the black sun. It's the alchemical process that has to be gone through. In psychotherapy, they say the Negrido as well, and so it's the dark night of the soul, if you like, and that's what we are processing so much. And when you think it goes back centuries, it's no little thing. You know, it goes back at least 100 years of intensity, because this process really started, you know, in the early 20th century. And with the wars and everything else, and so now we're reaching a peak of a transformative process that we really are now in the thick of actually processing this thing. So we have to look at the long picture, the big picture of it. It's not get bogged down in thinking, oh, everything's changed and, you know, the good old days, which is just a delusion, really.
Well, I say it is an absolute delusion.
Yeah, it is. But it's easy to think that and think, oh, things will never be the same again. All this about, oh, going back to normal. Well, we weren't normal in the first place. We were just blind. We were just oblivious that actually we were deluded, you know.
Well, you know, it's fascinating with what Jung said, and that meme that goes around saying the unconscious conscious, but I love the way he actually meant it, which was the psychological rule says that when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate, and that's in Ion paragraph 126. And
because unconscious, the cycles will keep coming back.
And things, you know,
each time you're more aware and you get an opportunity to be more conscious.
So maybe synchronicity is that not so much synchronicity, but then we just, the more aware we become, then things look like synchronicity as well.
Yes, exactly. We pick it up easier.
You know, so where we don't see and then we go, oh, and we put two and two together. And I've seen that happen in my own life of late. And but it is painful because you know, you can't, you know, the shared fantasies that we all have that are, you know, that are unrealistic, or, you know, that, and it's only when we call each other out on our shared fantasies, or, you know, maybe we've got differing needs, that things either, you know, build stronger or they fall apart.
Yes, exactly. So it's always an ongoing process that our unconscious is trying to become conscious, and that's what the transits show us. So, as particularly when we have a crisis, and when we have a cataclysmic, you know, as Jeffrey Wolf Green talked about, a cataclysmic event. Well, that is actually when you have a real opportunity. It's like, you know, volcano blowing, when you really have an opportunity it's screaming at you, get conscious and get conscious now.
Exactly. And I can't buy into the, you know, I sort of did my spiritual, you know, woo-woo spiritual, you know, work over years ago with the Course in Miracles and things, which was useful because I can say I know what that is. But I would say the idea I'm just going to become enlightened in a body of light, and, you know, it's like, you know, enlightenment is just, you know, it's whether it's an oxymoron or whether it's just, you know, in the Abraham Hicks stuff where people have been stuck in, you know, The Secret, and that the other thing where I get very working with women, you know, on my meetup groups where people I hear, which, you know, saddens me, and I correct them from my own, not correct them, but from my own perspective, that the attraction of that, you know, whether I prefer to say that, you know, we have experiences that you know, that feel comfortable, that maybe we would veer towards out of implicit memory. And it's not that we're really attracting, it's just that we're not at a point where we're conscious enough to say, hey, no, that's not for me. And we get ourselves involved in, you know, all sorts of things. So that for me, the Scorpio full moon, for me, it's 7 degrees. It's touching a few of my planets in a nice way.
Yes.
My own personal planets in a, you know, not a too tragic way. I've got a few people that I've seen where, you know, getting harder hits from it. But I would say that it's definitely where today I had 2 events that, you know, opened my eyes to the fact that, you know, that I'm very much, you know, can move on from certain things, even though it's painful and you want to stay stuck in a little fantasy, that you can say, hey, that's not real. You know, it's like there's more to life than being in the past. And that's what we're going through now.
Yes. And the wonderful thing is, the more conscious you do become of that, yes, it's painful at first, but then the more you do become conscious of it, as though it is an ongoing process, and it becomes less painful and less painful. And then it becomes you know, a moment of where you see the light on something. You get sudden inspirations, as you're saying, synchronicities that suddenly will show you, like a bolt of lightning, Uranus.
You're on track.
Yeah, that you'll suddenly get a sudden insight and you think, oh my God, I've suddenly seen it in a totally different way.
Exactly.
And that's
why I think again with the spiritual, you know, spirituality, where people say, oh, you know, just let it go and just forgive it. It's just so bloody useless and pointless, you know. Reiterating that to people, when what people really need is at this time is to be validated, to be heard, to work it through, to understand. You know, even when I've looked at Sam Vaknin with the narcissism stuff and the wet eco that you introduced me to, Paul Levy, when I've looked at that stuff, you know, it's really, it's not, you know, even with the idea that we live in a narcissistic society that's full of Watiko, it's not blaming, it's like saying, well, where is that in me? And, you know, where am I, you know, where do I need to call myself out? And again, this is consciousness, because we're not going to call ourselves out or, you know, be able to haul ourselves in, or be the good parent, the mother and father to ourselves, without, you know, going through all of this painful mess that we're in.
Yeah, exactly. And it's no good. It's just like a sticking plaster. It's false if you just try to delude yourself and think, if I just think everything's lovely and I just forgive everybody and I forgive myself and
I'll just let it go, and it's
just
like
think everything positive thoughts about everything, that actually it doesn't actually get you anywhere. It's what Jung said. You
Yeah.
have to go into the dark. You actually have to be prepared to go into the dark in order to find the light at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think also, so the moon is in opposition. Is there anything else going on here? We got the Saturn with Uranus, which is going on all year.
Powerful. And of course, this full moon is making a T-square to the Saturn.
Oh, let me see.
Yeah.
The T square to the sun. Yep. Okay. I see that now. To Saturn, it's making
Yeah.
a T square.
The moon is squaring Saturn, the sun is squaring Saturn. So they're both going into square with Saturn.
I get you. Okay. So that was that. I said that's quite interesting. So how would so that would be that where a culmination of that moon full on Saturn and then the sun. So what would you say?
Well, it's because that is part of getting the pain. I mean, it is quite painful if the moon squares Saturn, so that's going to be bringing up pain. But then it's in Aquarius, thinking of the big picture again, Saturn in Aquarius actually, and Jupiter in Aquarius. They're very much heightened, they're highlighting the new age. Because if you look at the biggest picture, that's what all this is really about. All, you know, it's been going on for a very long time, hundreds of years, in fact, but we've reached a crescendo when we reached, as I say, the wars, the First World War and the Second World War were a crescendo, and the atom bomb. And all of this has just been a very long process of going into the age of Aquarius. So now we've gone into a warp speed. We've accelerated into it. And that was marked by the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at the solstice of last year.
That's great. I was thinking there's that Chiron as well, you know, with the trine to the past.
Yeah.
The Sag, and then Sagittarius, and then the Aries, where, you know, we're really, I think, you know, being forced through COVID to look at ourselves. Like, people have been put in situations where they've had to sit with themselves. Some people have coped with it really beautifully, I've seen. Some people, you know, I think I've done quite well myself. It's not been easy. I've seen, you know, some people won't have the opportunity to really delve into that if they've got too many people around them. You know, it really depends on so many different circumstances how that works out for people. And then it's a sextile then, isn't it, to it's a sextile to our north node.
Yeah. And yeah, sextile trine to the south,
because that's our hypersensitivity. Eris is the goddess of discord. The sun, what would you say with the sun? I've always, as an astrologer, what would you, I mean, when people describe the sun, it's just our will, is it just our, you know, is it our personality? What is the sun for people out there?
Yeah, the sun is our center. I mean, you know, some would say the ego, but it is partly ego, I think, although that could be Mars, I suppose you could say. But I mean, the sun is the center, like it's the center of our universe. So it's our center. It's our.
I am the center. Yeah, I am. I am.
Center. Yes, exactly. Everything revolves around the sun. So it all comes down to the sun, really.
And then we've got the Saturn. The Saturn will go. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
The leader of the orchestra.
Yeah. Yes. We're each our own leader. I get you. So then the Saturn would be, that's going to go retrograde in May. And next, you know, the coming 3-4 weeks, maybe in May, it's going to go retrograde. And then that will go back to 6 degrees, I believe. And then Jupiter will tip in. I did look at that to look at my own chart. Jupiter will tip into Pisces, and then it will go retrograde as well.
So it hasn't done with Aquarius yet. We're in a very...
So that will be interesting. I mean, for me, that's just crossed, the Saturn's just crossed into my third house, and my third house is at 12. And then my third house starts at 12 Aqua, and then it will go back to 6. So it's going to go, but I can see the lessons there for me, or the learnings for me of the beauty of that. I'm quite looking forward to that moving through 3 for me in my feelings. So is there anything else there that we can bring up? We do like our Lilith. This is true. This is true Lilith. There is mean Lilith, which isn't on this chart. And then we've got also asteroid Lilith, which she refused to lay below Adam in the Garden of Eden and created chaos. And then, so And so there's a lot of beauty in this, and to look at the constellations as well, you know, it's just a whole new world for me with the constellations as well.
Yes, and sextiling the Neptune then there. Because the Neptune, it is, yeah, there is a lot of confusion, as we said before, and delusion, yeah, but there is also faith to be found. So, and Neptune in Pisces is very, very strong. So it's keeping that faith throughout all of this chaos that we're going through. It's keeping that faith,
And for me,
not slipping into delusion.
yeah,
So
for
it's
me,
walking that tightrope of, you know,
I get that. And when you said,
delusional.
sorry, when you said with me as well, that's on my IC. My IC is 2033. And that for me is heading to my Chiron, but it's going to swing back over, you know, back to 20 again. So it's very interesting, you know, that's going on for 2 years. I mean, Neptune moves so slowly, you know. So it's fascinating. So I think that's it for today. Is there anything else you'd like to mention? We've got the eclipses coming up. We've got in May and June, and then at the end of the year, November and December, we've got the retrogrades going on. So, and the Mars. Have you got any tips for this Mars moving through Cancer?
Well, I mean, there is quite a lot. It is emotional, isn't it? And
It feels that way.
You could say fears of security too. There's a lot of feeling of insecurity going on, obviously, because people have been very destabilized by all of this, and they don't know what's going on, and so it's yeah, and it's angry as well, you know.
Mars in water is a bit, is it, you know, Mars in water, it's, you know,
Yeah.
a bit like, where's it going with the moon involved, because the ruler of the Mars is the ruler of Cancer is the moon, so it's emotional.
And it's coming out of that square from Neptune as well. So it's confused, you know, confusion, and that was confusion, Mars square Neptune, but now it's still insecure. So it wants security. Mars in Cancer wants security, but there isn't much security to be. You've got to live within. We are learning to live without security, because really security, you know, as Neptune is saying in this, is an illusion itself.
I think
there is no security. Our only security is spiritual. So we have to reach for the spiritual.
I think also that, you know, I think that one of the lessons, I think I read Liz Green on the Saturn, I think it was Liz Green, if I could be wrong, but she was saying with the Saturn in the 4th house, which is conjunct my Chiron, that's one of the lessons. And I think we discussed this before, that really getting that lesson is just something that maybe, you know, people would, you know, crave for, to really understand in a lifetime. And whilst that's a hard hit, at the same time, I think I've witnessed it in myself over the last few months, that literally, you know, certain situations on resources or whatever, where, you know, not woe me, but just the fact that actually I'm okay, you know, I'm okay. It's like you know, I can have very little, and I know how to look after myself, you know. It's very easy to say, you know, different parts of the world, different cultures and whatever. I've got a roof over my head, and I've got, you know, food, and I've got some good friends, but, you know, it's not, you know, clearly everybody's going to be experiencing this difference. If we look at the, you know, the geographics, and we look at certain places in India, or, you know, or, you know, it's going to be different for different people.
Yeah, all over the world, different facets of it. But I mean, that Mars too it's going into square, of course, with Chiron in Aries, which is the wound too. So there is the wound about the security and the individuality. So we are an addicted, that's the Neptune, you know, we're an addicted society, or the world society has become addicted to materialism. The consumerist societies, we were saying. And in some ways, we have used that as a substitute for spirituality. And
yeah, I see that. And it had, I mean, going through that from 2012, I think, you know, really 2011 to 2000 and probably 17, where I was a bit woo-woo with spirituality and, you know, Abraham Hicks or whatever, and just seeing, that, you know, the idea that something's very off with it for me. I've seen a lot of lack of empathy in those circles as well. And I'm not getting at everybody that's into spirituality, but even the idea of what is it to be spiritual? Is it not that we don't even need to use that terminology, and that it's an act?
Very superficial. That's, and it's a contradictory thing, isn't it? You can't make spirituality superficial, because it's no longer spirituality anymore.
Yeah.
It's just a label. So, and that's what's happened. So we are going through a huge transformation where we are having to seek what is really secure, and deep, real spirituality is the only security we really have.
And it's in doing, isn't it? Addiction.
Yeah, and we have become addicted, like we have, all our material things are now sort of, and our ways of life and the way we live our lives very superficially has been thrown up into the air, and all the things we have and the homes we have, and now we're looking at everything is dissolving, and that's Neptune.
Yes, and even how we dispose of waste. Like, I live alone, and I see, like I buy fresh, and I don't eat meat. And I'm not suggesting people, I'm not, judging. I'm just saying that where I'm at in my life, and that, I go through waste every day, and I'm thinking, well, where is this waste coming from? It's like, it comes out of nowhere.
Isn't it? It's horrendous. So we are very, very aware of it now, and that's what we do need to go through. We are having our values, which again, that's Taurus, that's the second house, which is the natural ruler of of the second house. Taurus is Venus. So it's our values are now being put through the ringer.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is what we've got to do. We won't make a transition into a new age. And the new age is going to take a very long time to transition, but it has done, and it will do. But we are at a very pivotal point where we do need to change our value system, and it's urgent, and it's, destruction if we don't. So
it's very unnerving.
We are feeling that now, and we need to feel it, because we need to get, we need to
get moving.
We really do. Yeah, we really do.
I want to see this just before we sign off here. I just want to see that Mars go forward. I'm going to go by weeks to the 10 degree of the Chiron, and just see when that's happening. That's 6, that's 10. There you go. We've got that. So we've got that on the 11th of May. It will be just, let's see, we don't want a week. We'll probably go a few days ahead. We're going to go 11. There you go. 11. There you go. That's a sign for somebody out there, isn't it? 11. Then we got the square to Mars, to Chiron. So Chiron square Mars is going to be occurring on the 12th of May. There you go.
Should be good.
Yeah, that should be good. All right, so I'm going to sign off there. Is that well, thanks so much for this, and we'll be back with the new moon, and can we do some work on the eclipses as well for the people?
Great. Yeah.
I'd really love that.
Yes, great. Me too.
All right then. Okay, thanks so much, Michaela.
Thank you, Penelope. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, right then. Thank you.